could have been anywhere in the world tonight, but you're here with us in Lexington, Kentucky at Malone's Prime. So happy to have everybody here in the dining room. Also happy to have the thousands and thousands of people watching via the magic of the internet. Hello and welcome to the In the Money Media Final Answers event. Thank you so much to our friends and partners at TaylorMade/Medallion Racing. Also to our sponsors for tonight, Stable Recovery. You can learn more about the amazing work they do over at StableRecovery.net. My name is Peter Thomas Fornatale. I am very far from the Brooklyn Bunker, but I'm so happy to be here with you with a very special panel of guests. We'll start with the most important one. Sorry, Phillip. That's the woman over here to my far right, joining us for the first time in one of these Final Answer shows. You know the fantastic work she does on the Fox broadcast for New York racing and racing elsewhere in the country as well. She is Maggie Wolfendale. Thank you so much for joining us, Maggie.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Maggie Wolfendale Morley. I said your name wrong. That's
well,
already...
Well, no, I appreciate you actually adding the Morley because the guys that I generally work with, Jonathon excluded, can't quite get there. So.
Next, we'll go to the other end of the table and introduce a man who does a fantastic job, not just giving out winners on these shows, but also with the work he does behind the Medallion Racing partnership. Amazing achievements. I've been lucky to be there to see Porta Fortuna, among others, win races for them. Phillip Shelton, great to have you back.
Yeah, thanks, Pete. It's one of my favorite days of the year, so we're gonna definitely pick some winners tonight, so make sure everybody's ready to cash some tickets.
To my immediate right, a man who needs plenty of introduction. You've seen him also on Fox covering racing in New York. You've heard him on our airwaves for years. A man I famously plucked from obscurity, and now he's obscured me. He's on the Netflix show. I don't even know what to do with this guy, but I love him. He's Jonathon Kinchen. JK, what's up?
Hello. Good to see everyone. Is this mic? I feel like my mic's not working.
I think it's on.
Kind of like Beastie Boy it.
It is, okay.
Can we see an example of that, Maggie? I made Maggie beatbox. The show is already a success. Let's dive right in, people. We're going to mainly be talking about the last 5 races on your Friday and Saturday cards. But we're going to start off because in race 5 on Friday, we've got a house horse. This is the Edgewood Stakes. Phillip, what can you tell us about your runner in here?
Yeah, I think we're really excited to have Lush Lips in on Friday. She's just turned into a really nice filly. We always thought a lot of her in Ireland. We brought her here, and for a while she didn't run any good at Kentucky Downs without blinkers. Put blinkers back on. I give Brennan a lot of credit. He made a pretty gutsy call off 2 straight wins to take the blinkers off at Tampa. But he just said she's matured a lot and she doesn't need them. She ran really well against Nitrogen. I think Nitrogen's probably the best 3-year-old turf filly in the country at this point in time. But I thought she ran really well. She kicked and was kind of by herself for almost the entire length of the stretch, and Nitrogen just picked her up right on the line. Nitrogen came back to win. We're hoping Nitrogen's got a wheel back on a little bit less than 4 weeks. It was soft turf at Keeneland. Did that take anything out of her? We're coming in fresh. I think tactically, we don't have to be on the lead. I think we're drawn further to the outside.
I was going to ask you that. That was my fear as a neutral looking at it.
I think, going into the race at Tampa, I think Brennan took the blinkers off, hoping she'd relax a little more and we could have a target. There was just no speed in the race, so we had to go to the lead. We could be on the lead on Friday. I don't want to say that we're going to take her way back, but if somebody to the inside, the ones making her first turf start has speed, if that horse wants to go, I think we'll be content to sit just off. But in my mind, we have probably the best jockey in the country in Pratt, so I'll let him figure it out.
I just have one question.
Please.
Is she named for you, Phillip?
She's named after my wife. So.
Woo! I like it.
She's not here, so I can say that. She might not like it if she was here.
Do either of you have a quick thought on this race? Obviously, we know who we're rooting for in this race, but in terms of horses to go with or use in other wagers, no obligation. We can also dance to the late pick 5. But if you have a quick thought, I'd be curious to hear it.
look, Nitrogen, I think she is, like you said, the best 3-year-old filly in the country, though Phillip brings up some good points about her being, maybe softened up with the quick turnaround. But I just felt like, maybe look at Mark's other filly, who he did say to me when I saw him yesterday. I said, Nitrogen looks pretty good in that spot. And he's like, don't count out my other filly either. So
the one thing I'll say, I think, is that, like, with Mark having 2, you'd like to think he'll be aggressive with 1. It's the same ownership, too. Sometimes when a trainer has 2, it's like, well, you can't like really sacrifice the other one, but it's the same ownership. You can be more aggressive, which could give Lush Lips the target that Brendan thought she wanted last time, and she's drawn so well outside of her main competition to be able to sit outside of them. So I think she should end up getting a great trip.
Before we move on from this to get into our regularly scheduled programming, I do want to talk a little bit about the Medallion partnership, because everybody here in this room has the basics of it, but we got a lot of new people watching as well. Phillip, what's special about the Medallion partnership, and how can people get involved?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is just, this is exactly what we're trying to do. We've had roughly 300 starts over the last 7 years. Like 25% of them are in grade 1s, 65% are in graded stakes, but we always say it's an exclusive ownership opportunity at the highest level. We'll have 1 filly in on Saturday, 1 filly in on Sunday, 1 filly in Friday, 1 on Saturday, from a pretty small stable. So it's just, the goal is really to participate in the biggest races at the biggest tracks on the biggest days, and she's a great example of that.
I've seen it in action. Porta Fortuna at Royal Ascot last year. That was awesome. It was so cool to just be able to be in the wake of your guys' energy. Just fabulous stuff. All right, let's get on to these graded stakes later in the card. We'll pivot to race number 7, the Grade 1 La Troyenne Stakes. Maggie, let's bring you back in to hear your thoughts on this one.
So, I know a lot of people would love to beat Torpedo Anna. She's going to be a heavy favorite. I get it. But I really don't think anybody can, because, look, Randomized is a mare now that she comes back off of this long layoff. To me, first of all, I've never actually really liked her much. When she wins, she really beats me. But she only wins when she can get 47. At the fastest to the half. And I don't think with Torpedo Anna in there, that's going to happen. A lot of people maybe see that Raging Sea is going to be the beneficiary of that possible pace setup. I don't know. They both have to come back off layoffs, and that Torpedo Anna has the recency. So they're the main 3 for me. It's just more so Torpedo Anna.
I get it. I mean, it feels wrong in a way, if you love horse racing, to be anti-Torpedo Anna. And yet, I have a feeling when we question the rest of the panel, we may get that case. JK, I know you respect this filly. You have multiple filly and mares tattooed on your body. Torpedo Anna wouldn't be out of place, I think, in some ways, but yet you don't necessarily like her here.
Yeah, and Kenny will remind you, if she would have won the Travers, I would have had to get her tattooed on my arm. I made that deal with him.
You were a nose away.
And she ran a winning race.
Away.
I would have put a small little TA somewhere. So, like, the problem with her is that she's outstanding. She's great. Love her. We love to see horses like her. She's just not that fast. But she's game. She wins her races. And look, when she ran against Fierceness, she ran her fastest race. He kind of pulled her along, and she was right there for it. But she's just going to always be overbet, and there's just going to be opportunities to try to beat her. She will not beat me in the 2-day pick 6. She will not beat me in the pick 5. But I will 100% try to beat her in the race with a horse like Randomized, who, while I agree with Maggie, like, she's not a world beater by any means, but she's tactical. She won the Grade 1 Alabama. She's allowed to grow up a little bit. She could come back and be a good horse, and she'll be a price, I think, that you could take a shot. I'm not going to get cute and cut in line to try to beat Torpedo Anna, but I also am not going to mortgage the house on the 1 to 5 she's going to be.
Phillip, let's bring you in, because Maggie laid out a pace scenario where Raging Sea was the one to benefit. I saw it that way, and little birdie told me you might agree.
Yeah, I think that's, I think Randomized is going to try to get to the front, and I could just see a scenario. If she does get the right trip, she is game and can be tough. She's obviously had her issues. She's not heavily raced. But I could just see a world where maybe those two hook up a long way out and Raging Sea comes and picks the pieces up. I really liked her race last year in the Double Dog Dare, which was her first start of the year. It was also at a mile and a 16th. She showed a huge turn of foot. And the one, I guess, question mark for me, Torpedo Anna, I think the fields that she's been running against this year were pretty soft. But the only time she's, last year that she tried to come back on short rest was in the Cotillion, and it was her worst performance. So does the short rest have any impact? I don't think the races at Oaklawn were horribly taxing, but this is a whole different level of competition.
I have a counter argument to that, because she was coming off the most taxing race of her life in the Cotillion. It was the first time she ever shipped into a racetrack the night before, and Brian admitted to getting her in trouble and not getting her in a good spot early on. So, of course, I don't want Phillip to hate me for the first, first time we worked together.
You make a great first impression. Yeah.
I think she had valid excuses for that Cotillion.
We're going to see how it plays out. It's going to be fascinating. But I will say this for Phillip and JK and myself. This is the kind of thing that if you lose to Torpedo Anna, you clap her home just the same. Yeah. What a great mare, and just everything good about the sport, really. But, yay, we're a few wise guys up here trying to get cute. Let's move on to the Grade 3 Modesty Stakes. It goes as race number 8 at Churchill Downs. Phillip, I'm going to throw the ball right back in your court.
Yeah, I was really impressed with Gimme Another in her U.S. debut. I rate Saffron Moon really highly. I probably made the biggest bet of my year on her when she won at Tampa. And I got a little bit nervous late that this filly was going to run her down. I thought maybe they might wait for something like the New York. I guess this is the logical path kind of for Belmont weekend, to stretch her out, because I thought she might want further than a mile and a quarter. But I was really impressed, and I thought she's likely to improve second time in America. I'm hoping that 7-2 maybe floats up a little bit, but I liked her. I think the main three feel like the obvious ones. Saffron Moon ran well. She just got the perfect trip last time at Tampa, and then she feels pretty. Should get a pretty good trip off of Chad's filly just sitting just off. So nothing too creative.
Give me another, the South African bred for Phillip. Maggie, I think you're rowing in a similar direction. What's your case on this one?
With Gimme Another?
Yeah.
So there's another profession that can be more wrong than us and still have their jobs, and that's the weatherman. So I admit I went into this race thinking that we'd have more rain than what we have had. There's still a couple days left to go. But I just thought Gimme Another, with her South African form, has shown that she can be competitive over a turf course that has some give in it. And two, I really liked her runner-up performance behind Saffron Moon. And it was her first race in nearly a year, in 11 months. And I just felt like Saffron Moon got the jump on her last time, and she was getting to her in the end. And I feel like, again, going the mile and eighth with that race under her belt, she'll be tighter now. And we've seen Grand Motion with these South African imports just do so well. I mean, who's sourcing horses out of South Africa? Well, Grand Motion is, and he's doing well.
No doubt about it. JK, you and I are in lockstep in this one. I'll let you make the case.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like a huge fan of She Feels Pretty. I think if you look at every race last year, not for her, but for every horse, I think her Queen Elizabeth was probably the top 5 performances I saw of a horse last year. I thought it was outstanding. And the thing about her is that in Saratoga on August 17th in the Lake Placid, she disappointed me very, very badly when she hung on Grey Ocean and didn't run by her. And she cost me financially.
Not that you're bitter or anything.
But Cherie actually walked by us leaving the track that day and said, I'm going to put blinkers on her. I think that'll help. And she's won 2 races in a row since then. I think people had distance questions for her, but it wasn't about the distance while she was hanging. I think she was hanging because she needed the blinkers. I think she wins this race, and I think she goes on to win the New York and hopefully cuts back and wins the Diana, and she's on a 3-race win streak. I think she's outstanding.
considering she was running those races, those numbers as a 3-year-old too, and a lot of times you'll see that big jump forward even from 3 to 4 a lot of times. So I respect her. I just thought there were several horses coming back on these cards off of layoffs on a big day. Sometimes they can be vulnerable.
Fair enough. Let's move on to race number 9, grade 2, 8 bells. I'm going to jump in here because I have one who I think is going to be a price that I don't think any of you guys fancy. Number 9, Bourbon Memory, I think is an interesting runner here for trainer Brendan Walsh. Funny name, Bourbon Memory. The more bourbon I have, the less memory. But I do think this filly, funny name aside, does have an opportunity, especially with the switch back, or the switch to turf, or switch to dirt, excuse me, for the first time, given this pedigree with Medallion Racing on the top and Empire Maker on the bottom. I just thought there was a real chance that this one has an opportunity to step up and be heard from in this space. But I know we have a variety of opinions here. JK, we'll throw it back to you to hear yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably one of the hardest races of the entire weekend. There's just nothing for me to really grab and lean on. I ended up picking Verity for Owen Hardy. Look, like I said, if in a multi-race wager, I'm going to try to use like 9 horses. I think this race is the hardest race. Yeah. But the one thing I'll say about her is that, she's one of those horses where she has a bunch of runs on synthetic that don't wow you. She won, but the numbers don't wow you. The first time she finally got to the dirt, she kind of popped through. I wish it wasn't on the sloppy racetracks, because was that what moved her up? Is that what she loved very much? So Verity I'll use on top, but the one price horse I do want to mention is Kimchi Cat. This is going to sound very self-serving for us, for the 3 of us who spend a lot of time in Saratoga, but to me, if you win a race at Saratoga as a 2-year-old, you're talented. And it's why I picked the horse I picked in the Kentucky Oaks, which we'll get to. That's TV. You don't tell anyone until it's TV. I learned that. Kimchi Cat ran really well at Saratoga. And I think Tom Amos, although he is a colleague and a friend, I think he is a sensational horse trainer. And I think that while she might have, quote, fallen off, I think it was because they were trying to stretch her out. And now they're back to reality. And I think we'll get some of those old races out of Kimchi Cat. And I'm also a huge Twirling Candy fan. So that's my interesting opinion, I think, of this situation. But I'm going to try to use as many horses as I possibly can in the spot.
Yeah, I mean, that's how it goes sometimes. You have one you can lean on, but you need to spread around to feel like you have a chance. That'll happen a lot on these big days, given how competitive this racing is. Maggie, let's bring you in for your opinion on the 8 bells.
Well, I have this feeling that the horse I put on top is not going to be 15-1 because I feel like a lot of people like her. And I think that could be, in fact, depending on what kind of figures you use. But Mandela, she did run a very fast Ragozin number, if you use those. And really, in just 2 starts, she has shown progression. The downside of her is, who did she beat? Looking at those Oaklawn races, there weren't many, superstars in there. But you could also kind of say that even looking back at Kimchi Cat's races, there really hasn't been anybody to come out of there to run well. She's just good. And Mandela, I saw her at Oaklawn. I was impressed with what I'd seen from her. And 2, she's shown an adaptability, whether, I think she can be a little bit more tactical than those races show. And I think she's just progressing at the right time.
Yeah, it makes sense. You like anybody to go with in this spot?
Verity has some upside. Who did I go to? I went to the 12, Eclatant, because honestly, she's undefeated sprinting, and she also is one that seems quite versatile. And coming out of that last race in the Forward Gal, there were 3 next time out winners. So she's the one that's not going to be a big price that I like as well. And 2, it feels like going 7 furlongs. I know she's drawn the far outside, but those 1-turn races, it doesn't matter as much.
No, for sure. I mean, it can be a tactical advantage depending on how the pace shakes out. Phillip, how about you? What say you?
Yeah, I like Mandela as well. Dare to Fly did come back and run second in a stake at a mile, which is probably a little bit too far. But she had a pretty tough trip first time out, probably due to her own issues. But I like she beat the 3rd place finisher by 3 lengths. She came back at her next start, beat that same horse by basically 10 lengths. And I mean, she was just visually incredibly impressive. The sheet number came back really fast. I just didn't love anybody else. And to me, she feels like she could be, if you just said pick a horse in here you think is like grade 1 talent, it's her. For me, I think I also liked the 11 Look Forward a little bit. This horse to me has just been crying out to cut back. And I like horses in this race, the Pat Day Mile, that feel like they just have been trying to make them into Oaks Derby horses, maybe have a little bit more class. Her first 2 races were really good. And then she won the Santa Ynez, and they kind of tried the Oaks trail, and it just didn't work. But I think cutting back to 7/8 could really benefit her.
Let's do a quick discussion of race number 10, the Grade 3 Unbridled Sydney Stakes, so we don't have to give short shrift to the Kentucky Oaks. Phillip, we'll keep it with you for your idea on the winner of this one.
You know, to me, this is just, do you like the 4, do you like the 9? Because I just, you know, to me, the 4...
That's how the panel has it, yes.
Yeah, the 4, AG Bullet has got a ton of class. You know, she almost won the Breeders' Cup at 5. She came back and ran 3rd in the Matriarch. At a mile, she's got a ton of versatility. And to me, when she's on her game, she's the best female turf sprinter in the country. She just kind of is a weird horse that she really doesn't sprint that much on the grass. Like they'll try her a mile. She's very good. You have the layoff to worry about, and then it's just Queen Maxima's kind of, you know, the now horse. But I went with AG Bullet. I just think the back class, and she's shown the ability to be a little bit versatile with her trip.
That's one vote for AG Bullet. I think we have another one on the panel. JK, what do you think?
Yeah, AG Bullet for me. I actually don't like the 9 at all.
Really? Not at all?
No, not at all. So
we need to pause on that.
No, and Maggie can relate to this in New York as well, but it's even more dramatic in California. The difference between 6.5 down the hill and 5.5, a flat 5.5, is astronomical. It's a huge difference. And the 9 is clearly a horse that runs well down the hill. The other 2 wins were at 6 furlongs. A 5.5 against this group is a completely different ballgame.
Wait a minute, she won at 5.
No.
She's done well at Del Mar.
No, she won at 5. Yeah, she won at 5 in a maiden race.
Okay.
Yeah,
but her
but
numbers have just keep going up. I think that's natural progression, not necessarily distance.
If they put all 9 of these horses on an airplane and flew them back to California, I would bet every dollar in my pocket on Queen Maxima going down the hill at 6.5. I just don't think it's the same ball game going 5.5 at Churchill, and I think AG Bullet is significantly better. And the one interesting one for me is the 8 Esternia, who's getting back to the grass. She's just really fast on the dirt, and if it translates to a certain extent, she could be tough at a big price.
Yeah, you and I both like Esternia as a price to go there, but Maggie, we need you to make the proper case for Queen Maxima in here, because you and I agree completely.
I'm going to start with a negative against AG Bullet. She's never run going 5.5. I mean, if anything, I know the 5/8 going in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, arguably one of her best races, but consistently throughout her form, she's better going longer, whereas I just feel like Queen Maxima is maybe a little bit handier, and honestly has run some of the other, when you look at different figures and metrics, she's run consistently fast. And for me, I just prefer her. And two, like I said, throughout this card, I've taken shots against horses that look good, that are going to be short prices coming off long layoffs.
She's going to trip out, I think, to Queen Maxima in here. I just think it's going to work out for her. I get your point. JK, I usually am all about betting against downhill horses going these flying shorter sprints, but this one's proven she can done it. It was earlier in her career. We'll see how it plays out on Friday.
You plucked me from obscurity. I will admit that. But I also taught you how to look at turf sprints better.
That's so true. I was a terrible turf sprint handicapper until I met this man right here. But enough with the turf sprints. It's time to go for a dirt route, the race that gives the day its name, the Grade 1 Kentucky Oaks. JK, I'm going to keep it with you to hear who you think is going to win this one.
Yeah, look, I mean, Lucara, I think, is very good. It's hard to argue about Good Cheer. Those 2 horses won't beat me in multi-race wagers, but my top choice is going to be Quiet Side. I teased it a little bit earlier. When you run well and impressively well at Saratoga as a 2-year-old against all those monsters and those big trainers and those big horses, you look at Quiet Side's 2-year-old year, right? I mean, she won first out. Then she lost to Immersive, who was a champion, a multiple Grade 1 winning champion. And then, she ran well in the Goldenrod. She lost to Good Cheer. And then all of her races this year have been fine. I mean, I think she had an excuse in her comeback race in the Martha Washington, and her Honeybee and her Fantasy were sensational. I just think she's really damn good, and I'm not really worried about where she drew. I mean, if you think about it, Catherine Sophia, if I'm not mistaken, won from the 12. Pretty mischievous one from the 14. Serengeti Empress won from the 13. Like, I don't care that she's drawn wide out there. She's tactical enough to be able to get into the 2 or the 3 path. Like I said, I'm not trying to beat the other horses, but I just think she's going to be great value.
I get it. Phillip, how do you see this year's Kentucky Oaks?
Yeah, this is a race. Typically, I was trying to find an alternative to Good Cheer. I think she kind of parallels for me a lot of times with like some Southern California dirt colts, where it's every race is a 4-horse field or a small field of kind of inferior horses, and she just gets a perfect trip every time. She's just been way better than what she's run against so far, more or less in her entire career. But she's just not faster than anybody else on really any speed figures. I ended up picking her just because I do think she's the most likely winner. I think Tenma's kind of interesting. She's only lost 1 race in her life. And, very rarely are you going to get Baffert at 10-1 plus. And she just feels like a horse that's got maybe some tactical versatility. I think she definitely wants the mile and an 1/8. And then one last horse I think I'm a little bit intrigued with is Chad's filly Ballerina D'Oro. To me, she just feels like she's far from the finished product. And I could see her taking a forward step, and I think she'll absolutely love the distance. I think there's a scenario where the pace could get pretty hot, and I just think she's a horse that's going to see the distance out. So
there you go. I will regret saying these words, but I think this might be the rare case where the fact that Good Cheer's speed figures don't give her a huge edge over this field actually doesn't matter. I just love that last race visually. I thought that she was wide on a day when ground loss mattered and did so easily enough that she's got more in hand. I'm definitely on her for the top pick. I absolutely respect Quiet Side. I'm going to give you just a very goofy long shot for 3rd and 4th because, there are bets like the trifecta and the superfecta. Number 4, Drexel Hill, will be touted by no one. And I think you can make a little bit of a story based on this one's form. Looking at the figures, there's a gap between her and the fastest of these, but I think it might be a bridgeable gap. I think pace-wise, this one's very versatile. The distance is going to test her, but I just think she fits a little bit more than it looks like on paper, and it's a 30-1 shot who could run 3rd or 4th. So that's one that I just wanted to make a little bit of a vote for. Maggie, what do you think about this one?
As far as horses that might be a little bit of a bigger price than Good Cheer, I kind of like Witt's other horse, who will be a far smaller price than Drexel Hill, but simply joking. Look, if this race didn't possess other speed types, I would have picked her on top. I loved her race in the Fantasy in defeat because there was only one option for Jaime Torres, and he had to go, and he was just run down by a horse who had recency, who is very good, and who has run with some of the best horses in the country in Quiet Side. So I kind of get why that happened, because, simply joking, missed the Rachel Alexandra because she had a fever. She missed some time training. So there's every reason to believe that she needed that race back. Like I said, I wish there wasn't any other speed types in here. She could ultimately prove to be the fastest, and she's drawn well. The one thing I will say about Quiet Side, who I wholeheartedly respect, she was tired after that last race. I interviewed Jose Ortiz on the pony at Oaklawn, and I had to run back on the pony to get him. Usually I'm running to them galloping out. I had to run backwards the wrong way on the track because he pulled her up quick and she was so it did take a little bit out of her.
Stamina concerns.
Right. So Good Cheer, until she does something wrong, she's looking to be the first since Rachel Alexandra to win the Oaks undefeated. So those are pretty big hooves to fill. Yeah.
We're going to see how it plays out in the Kentucky Oaks. We're going to take a 10-minute break. So this is an excellent opportunity to, we got the bar open over there. We got the food still rocking over there. We also have the Medallion Syndicate rocking and rolling. If you head down that way, you'll have an opportunity to, you see with the hand and whatnot, to get involved in that, have an opportunity to wager if you're in-house. If you're watching online, we're going to be back soon. If you're watching the replay, whatever, you're done with me, just go click on the Derby video. It's going to be a lot of fun. We do encourage you to subscribe to the In the Money Media YouTube channel, and we'll be back in just a minute. and welcome back to the In the Money Media Final Answers Show for Kentucky Derby 2025. We are here live in Lexington, Kentucky, one of my favorite places in the world. Let's hear it for Lexington, Kentucky. We've got a lovely crowd here, and we are about to go through this late pick 5 on Kentucky Derby Day. Want to let you know that today's show, in addition to being sponsored by our friends at TaylorMade/Medallion Racing, also sponsored by StableRecovery.net, a charity doing fantastic work. We want you to go to their website and check out all the ways that they are helping people in the horse racing industry and beyond. Peter Thomas Fornatale back with you with this fabulous team, and we're just going to dive right in, people. We've got 5 Grade 1 races to talk about. We're going to start off with race number 8, and boy, what a war this one is. The Grade 1 Churchill Downs Stakes, and we will start with the star of our show, who you know from television and other places, not you.
JK.
Maggie Wolfendale Morley. Maggie, who are you picking in this race, and how long did it take you to come up with a selection?
It's embarrassing how long it took. It was not easy because I kept looking through this field and being like, well, I can make a case for him. I can make a case for... So finally you have to kind of nitpick and you have to find things that you don't like. And I don't like the price of the horse that I picked, but I just thought that he might be better than any of these horses in here. And that's Mind Frame. You look at his lone 7 furlong race, it was his first and it was his best when you look at any kind of speed figure. So I am going to take Mind Frame. And the fact that when he came back off, granted, a long layoff in that Gulfstream Park Mile, he was getting late. He was kind of struggling to the wire. So what's the best thing to do with a horse that's struggling to get to the wire? Turn him back another furlong. So I'm going to take Mind Frame in here in hopes that, too, there's a little bit of pace out in front of him as well.
I get it. He's famous. He's brilliant. I still see him in my nightmares when, from my vantage point on Belmont Stakes Day, he could not lose and decided to throw that race away. But, hey, that was then. This is now. And I know this panel has a lot of love for Mind Frame. I can't get there myself quite. I'll make the very quick case for the horse that I like, Banishing. This horse is the now horse. This is the horse that is sharp right now. He's a stalker and pouncer. He's drawn more inside than I would have ideally liked, but I do think he has an opportunity if he represents what he did 2 weeks ago again on Saturday. I think he could be heard from, and I think he might sneak away as a better than should be price in a race with so many famous horses. But let's bring in the rest of the panel to talk about this one, because I know, Maggie, you are not alone in your affection for Mind Frame. We'll go to your colleague, JK, and hear what he has to say.
Well, I'm going to make fun of your pick first.
Me too.
Fair
Can
enough.
we do it together?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
3rd race in 35 days.
Ditto.
And if Banishing, I've done this before. I've put these horses in the winner's circle. If Banishing beats Mind Frame, Nisos, and Mulligan, I am going straight to the airport. Like immediately going to the airport. It's not that far. I will walk.
I'll pick you up. From New York.
Look, I mean, honestly, though, in all fairness, I could use him underneath, but he's not. I don't think he's going to beat these horses. For me, Mind Frame is. I think Mind Frame and Nisos are very similar in the fact that they both have displayed brilliant talent. The difference is like Maggie pointed out, is Mind Frame looked tired in his last race because he probably needed it. And now Nisos might need it. Now, Baffert doesn't usually need races, but
it is 455 days.
But against these types of horses, Nisos might. Like, once again, Nisos won't beat me. Mind Frame won't beat me. And I certainly will not be beat by Mulligan because he's really damn good, too. And he's established, right? Like, we're still kind of hoping that Mind Frame and Nisos turn into who we hope they are and we really want them to be. But Mulligan's kind of already that. Like, he just shows up and runs well and runs fast numbers. So those 3 horses will be on everything I use, but Mind Frame, I think, is the one you want to use to win.
Can I say one thing about Mulligan?
Yeah.
Mulligan, Jesus. When you look at the horses he beat, though, I question how good they are overall that they are. He was beaten by Straight No Chaser and Ben Tornado, and I think those are very good. Okay. But then you look at the horse that he has beaten.
Yeah.
And plus the layoff.
I want to just put in a quick word about this race, that there is a world in which, with all these very famous, very fast, very brilliant horses, there is some scenario where it's just a total meltdown. And with that in mind, I would not be leaving the 3 Bookham Dano or the 6 Extra Añejo off of many tickets, especially for the 2nd and 3rd spots in bets like the trifecta.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Maggie, I'll let you talk Bookham Dano because I know you saw him a bunch throughout in New York. But I will say this about Extra Añejo. Once upon a time, he was like the best 2-year-old for a second and a half, and he had shown a bunch of talent, and he just kind of hasn't really figured it all out. But he ran well last time, so he got a little bit of a setup, but he was definitely one I would use underneath.
Phillip, I know. Oh, you go ahead, Maggie.
Oh, no. I was just saying, because Extra Añejo, yeah, they did go fast, but Moltecino, he was the pace setter / favorite, and he still went and got hit. So it's not like it completely incinerated the pace. So I could not agree more that those 2 horses are the 2 backups to Mindframe.
Phillip, let's bring you in here to break the tie about this race. So which way are you going?
I ultimately picked Mindframe, but I almost picked Bookham Dano just because he's going to be a lot bigger price. I thought he ran really good at Colonial. And he's ran some races as a 3-year-old that I think are fast enough. And on sheets, he actually ran his career best number, I think, last time.
He did.
But he's just a horse I think has got a ton of talent. He's shown up on a lot of big days. I think Mindframe might be the most talented horse in here, but he gets in his own way. He almost got in his own way last time at 1-9. But I do think he's the most talented. On Extra Añejo, I think at Keeneland, it felt like the move he made was the right move. Like, typically, it's just very speed-friendly. Whoever's on the rail and gets to the front. I don't know if it was the weather or what, but it felt like for long periods of the meet, horses that were stalking and coming wide on the dirt had a huge advantage. And I thought he rode that. Like, I've been a huge fan. I probably bet him a bunch, and I absolutely hammered him when he won the Commonwealth because he projected to get that kind of trip. But he's going to have to show me against these kind of horses that he's the same horse they thought he was at one point.
Let's move on to the American Turf, 3-year-olds. Big race for 3-year-olds, but this one is on the turf, not like the one we're going to be talking about in a minute. Maggie, you and I think, see this one pretty similarly. I'll let you make the case.
Yeah, I went with Zulu Kingdom in here for Chad Brown's looking for his 3rd win in this American Turf. I like this horse a lot as a 2-year-old, as a physical, and he came back and suggested in that Columbia that he's taken this needed step forward that horses need to do. I mean, he hit the lead, his ears were pricked, forward at the quarter pole, and I know the margin of victory was only a neck, but it felt like there was still more in there for him to kind of bring to the table. So I took him, and I don't know what to make of the California horses per se. I think Ironman Cal could be dangerous in here, but because he ran so well in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but it's always hard to judge those turf races in California for me.
JK, Napoleon had his Waterloo. You and I, for a few years running, had our American Turf. This was a race that flummoxed us. Flashing back to the early days of the In the Money Players podcast. First and foremost, do you think those days are behind us? And secondly, who's going to win?
They're always behind us. Yeah, I mean, I don't even. I think I picked Zulu Kingdom, right? Or New Century, one of the two. I think one of those.
New
two.
Century.
Okay, yeah, New Century or Zulu Kingdom. Sure, yeah. I want to talk about Giacoso, who this is legitimately not a. I forgot that you guys had not this time. It had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. He's picking the house horse.
Yeah,
he knows where his bread's buttered.
No, I'm dead serious. Like, if you start one of the things that I like to do in handicapping, and one of the things I like to try to, teach people who want to know more, is start at the bottom of the past performance and work up, not the other way around. A lot of people do it the other way. They look at the top and they work backwards. Start at the bottom and work up and tell a story. And if you look at Giacoso, he had the dirt race. He had a good turf race. Then he went to Ellis. He won. Then he ran in the Iroquois because everyone gets Derby fever. That and you have a Not This Time that'll run on anything, so why not try it? That didn't really work out. Then he gets in trouble in the Castle and Key. Then he comes back and runs well and wins the allowance race. Then he goes to the sideline. He comes back and says, hey, you know what, we have a Not This Time. It's talented. Let's try this dirt thing again. Doesn't work out. Then he just ends up on the synthetic and because let's just try to get in the Derby again. And now we're back to reality and we're getting back on the grass. And I think this horse is my legitimate. I like another long shot. This is my second favorite long shot the entire weekend to get involved, Giacoso.
30-1 on the morning line for Giacoso. If this one wins, JK, it'll be a case of Julio, get the stretch. I'll throw in a long shot that's not quite the level of that one. I did pick Zulu Kingdom in the race. I think Test Score is very interesting just because I think this is a situation that Test Score has shown that he can enjoy. Attending a fast pace and then just showing enough late. That's what he's going to see here. He's going to be a big price. I definitely want him involved. Phillip, what are your thoughts in this American turf?
I thought this race was pretty wide open. I ended up picking Ironman Cal on top. I hope that I didn't love 9-2. I think for a horse coming off the layoff, as
might get
Maggie
more than
said.
that.
Yeah, I just thought he ran huge in the Breeders' Cup. He's run really well in every race, except maybe his debut where he went 5/8. We actually breezed with him 2 weeks ago, and I've gone back and watched every breeze. Our filly just won a Grade 3 easy on Sunday, and he's the most impressive turf horse working on dirt I've probably watched in the last couple of years. Whether that means anything and how he runs, I have no idea. But I just think he's doing really well. Phil doesn't ship horses that aren't live. He doesn't typically run a bunch on the East Coast. And so I think this horse has got a big shot. I also I like Scipio as well. He's another California horse, but at least he came in and ran at Keeneland. He was probably further back at Keeneland than I would have expected, especially because he had just gone down the hill at 6.5. But Test Score got first run on him. I thought he rallied really well. But, I think there's a bunch of different ways you could go in this spot.
Let's pivot to the Derby City Distaff Stakes, which will start with a little tangent from me. So, those numbers you see written in your program, the morning line, what that is one human's educated guess at what the prices are going to be. And there's no, and to JK's point, there is no equity in this life picking on morning lines. It is a truly, truly thankless job. But I don't think there's a way to talk about this race without talking about the morning line, because I do believe that number 2, Copian, listed at 8-1, going to be closer to 8-5 than 8-1. Is that unfair? Anyway, love Copian in this spot. I know the panel has a lot of love for Copian. Yeah. Why don't I send it to who wants to talk about Copian first? Well, dealer's choice.
I'll be quick. I think 3 horses have to win this race: Copian, Scylla, or Ways and Means. I'm a fan of Vava. I think that she was better. She got good at the right time last year and was better than the horses she was facing. It's why she had the run she had. And I think she's talented, but I think she's kind of going the other direction. These other horses are kind of up and coming. Copian is obviously outstanding and the top horse in here. Scylla loves Churchill Downs. She's 4 wins at Churchill Downs. She's got 5 wins in her career. The other one was in Kentucky. She just runs better in Kentucky for whatever reason. And then I'm a card-carrying member of the Ways and Means fan club, and it's every time she's lost, it's cost me. I think she's sensational, and if she turns out to be who she told us she was going to be on August 6th of 2023, she could be pretty special, and she might run by all of them, but she's got to prove it to me because she's let me down too many times. But one of those 3 horses has to win, in my opinion.
Maggie, you and I have the same 3 listed in our notes for this race. We'll let you take it from here.
Shall we talk about our long shot?
Yeah, that would be fun.
All right. I'll let you do that as well. But number 11, Positano Sunset, as she's come back as a 5-year-old here for Ian Wilkes, her numbers are just so much better than, well, not so much, just consistently those 2 races are better than what we've seen from her. And yes, one could argue, like Phillip was saying, maybe the track was in her favor this spring at Keeneland. But then she did it as well down at Tampa. I don't know, it just feels like as a 5-year-old now, this mare has gotten good. And if there is a pace scenario that we see melting down, she's the one that's going to be running late.
You left no meat on the bone for me. You
sorry.
you nailed that one. That means with 3 votes for Copian on top, with a couple of other ideas in terms of Scylla and Ways and Means and Positano Sunset, we need to bring in Phillip because he sees this one a little bit differently than the rest of the panel.
I'm obviously biased. We have the 15 who's going to draw in, and I don't. The pace scenario, obviously, this is the one thing I would say is this is probably the best version of this race ever. This is probably tougher than the Breeders' Cup last year.
Completely agree.
You got a bunch of horses coming off a layoff, so that's a question. Mott is typically very conservative, and there's a grade 2 next week in New York going a 1-turn mile. That if you would have told me after our allowance where are we going to run, I would have said we're 4 to 5 to run in the race in New York. And he wanted to run her here. She's 3 for 3 sprinting on dirt. I think the 7/8 is fine. She's 1 for 1 at Churchill. Just it's not the same, but Positano Sunset beat Dream Concert by a length in her first start. We just beat her by 6 without moving a muscle down the lane. I'm hoping that she's a horse that just wants to free run and doesn't have to be on the lead. She definitely wants to pull, which is probably why it's, keeping her at 1 turn makes sense. Her 1 defeat was at 2 turns, and she just never relaxed at any point in time. This is an incredibly tough field, but I do think she's got a ton of talent, and she might have more upside than some of the ones in here. I'm probably like the biggest Scylla fan. I know Jonathan's a Ways and Means fan, but we were alive for tons and tons of money had she won the Breeders' Cup, and I thought like every step of the way she was going to win, and then she just couldn't get there and got beat. But I don't love that she was sick and missed the Madison. I don't think that's ideal coming into this kind of spot. She's obviously worked well since then, but yeah, it's a wide open race. The one thing about Copion that's really weird to me is like they just breezed her on Monday at Santa Anita, and she's like to the point I was like, is she even going to run? When Mott told me we were getting in, so I knew there had to be a scratch. There were 3 cross-entered horses for other races, and then I saw she had breezed, and I was like, is she not going to run? But Spencer posted something that she's got to run out. I think it was a picture of her at Churchill. But just in today's age, it feels like a long time ago, a lot of people would have done that. Now it feels very rare that you would work across the country the week of a race.
It's interesting too. So like on the 23rd, she had a 7 furlong work too. So that's.
And Mandela,
I'll offer the rebuttal. In Richard Mandela, we trust.
And
Mandela's so old school too.
Yeah, he does blow them out.
Yeah,
like I thought maybe she would come here,
Yeah.
like Bree 7/8 come here, and then like today have blown out 3/8. I could have seen that.
Yeah.
Just kind of a weird.
When old school Hall of Famers do weird things you don't expect, double the bet. That's my experience in this game. Let's talk very quickly about the penultimate race that we're going to be doing here. We're going to get into this Turf Classic, and it's a really interesting race. This is a race where all 4 of us have different top picks, and my partner in crime over here, a man who receives all manner of unfair guff for supposedly always picking the favorite. He's going with the longest, what may well be, at least on the morning line, the longest shot on the board in this spot. JK, let's hear who you like in the Old Forester Turf.
Yeah.
I confused you there, huh?
I forgot who I picked, and he was looking over your shoulder. Sorry.
So this is the long shot that I love the most. And it's Cameo Performance. It's the same idea. I think if you start at the bottom of the past performances, you work your way up, you tell yourself a story. This horse shows up in the U.S., is odds on at Keeneland, gallops, okay? Then comes back, runs on soft ground at Churchill. We all know how Churchill had some issues with the turf course. That didn't go great. Runs in Woodbine, okay, fine, on synthetic. Then comes back to Ellis and runs huge again. Last, closing into a slow pace, which is one of my favorite angles in racing. I think it's the only thing that's still, the only nugget that's still a little bit hidden. Then tries 10.5 furlongs at Kentucky Downs. Doesn't go well. Comes back last time. If you watch that race and you see how slow the horse that won was like 80-something to 1 wire to wire. I'd rather be blessed. This horse, Cameo Performance, was last turning for home. and was without a doubt the best closing horse of all the horses in there, including a horse that will be single digits probably in redistricting. That was 10-1 right now, but it's Chad and Klarvich. I love Cameo Performance in this spot.
Not the only one on this panel going for a long shot. Should I give my very boring integration case first? Because I'm kind of with that one at the lower end of the market. I definitely get that Cameo Performance idea. I did not have amongst my picks, but maybe I was sleeping there. But I just think integration is a horse I've liked for a long time. I just thought it was going to get an absolutely perfect trip, breaking down from the inside and being able to employ stalk and pounce tactics. But let's bring in the rest of the panel here to get some more ideas in this one. Phillip, we'll start with you because JK sort of teed you up to talk a little bit about the one that you like.
Yeah, I'd say Integration's one of those horses for me. Like, he just burns money every time I look at him, and sometimes he has excuses, sometimes he doesn't. He just doesn't win any big races like this against this caliber of horse. I ended up picking redistricting, but I like Cameo Performance as well. I just thought that was a weird race at Fairgrounds. I'm just willing to draw a line through it and just say, you know what, his races before that I think are pretty good. He's lightly raced, and I just think he could take a step forward, maybe where some of these kind of are what they are. Second start off lap. I thought his race at Del Mar was really good. He showed a big kick at a mile and a 16th. But I don't, I like him. I like the 6, and I like the 8, and I just had to put them in an order for the sheet. But I'll be playing all of them.
Fair enough. Maggie, how do you see this one?
Well, first of all, I will root for JK's long shot because he's the son of one of my favorite mares that my husband trained, La Moneda.
Oh, right.
So, don't know why we didn't end up with that one. No, I'm kidding. So I did go with Taking Candy here because if you do watch a show, you do know maybe that I have certain horse crushes. And Taking Candy is one of the lucky members of that club. I've just been a fan of this horse throughout, and really, he hasn't done much wrong in his career either. So I don't mind the Fairgrounds in coming back in February, and I just thought, yeah, he doesn't run that much, but it feels like when Cherie leads him over, he generally shows up and performs. I agree with you with Integration that maybe he doesn't win these big races, but how is he going to beat Carl Spackler going a mile? He's not a miler. He wants more ground. He gets it here. He's a horse that is formidable in this spot. So I didn't have any really clever thoughts. I don't necessarily love redistricting. I've never been his biggest fan. If anything, I like Chad's other horse in here, Spirit of St. Louis, better.
Is he worth pausing on for a minute? What a cool New York bred
Correct.
Spirit of St. Louis is, and he's listed in our picks a little bit. How serious of a contender is he, JK?
Oh, I mean, I think for sure, Manny's 7 for 9 on him. And the 2 times he lost, he ran second. I think Manny has a great relationship with him. And, I mean, no offense to Tyler, I just think Manny gets along with the horse well. And he is. He's super, super talented. But, and look, I mean, he's definitely a horse that I would use and not get beat by. But this is a tough spot. I'm interested. I just want to just give a shout to the 9. That horse is also entered, I think, I look at so many damn races. I think on Friday or tomorrow or whatever.
Tomorrow.
So I don't know when he's going to run. But that horse ran really fast last time on the synthetic.
Who is his trainer? Does anybody know?
I was watching a different thing, and they said he has 2 horses.
Yeah. He's been training for a while, and this year he's made about 3 times as much
He's 5 for 7 on the year.
Right.
I'm told that's good. That's a good batting average in this game.
71%.
If you can win 5 of 7, you're doing something right. So I wouldn't be too concerned. But it is an interesting story. I'm sure we'll hear more about. Let's get to the big one, team. The Kentucky Derby, a race that many have framed as journalism against the field. We'll see how we feel. There's some rumors floating around that maybe there's going to be a scratch in here. We're going to wait and see what happens. because Baeza at number 21 makes this race very hard to talk about until you know, in my opinion, if he's getting in or not. We're going to wait and see. I'm going to say right now, my opinion is it's 50%. Somebody in the body of the field is going to scratch between now and scratch time on Saturday. But you guys can answer the question with Baeza, without Baeza. You know, to me, it does make it a little bit tricky to talk about this race. I did put him in my picks. But let's talk about the key question when it comes to this year's Kentucky Derby. Maggie, who's going to win?
I
Don't
feel
let
like
Maggie go first. Hold on, I'm gonna set you up. So I just want to say this. I like East Avenue. I'm gonna pick a different horse, but I think East Avenue is interesting. I don't think he has to get the front. I think he's drawn perfectly to the outside. I think two horses are the most likely winners. I think Sovereignty, who has habitually been a bad workhorse, is one who's now working well, so he's obviously doing better. But I have legitimately reserved my brain fully deciding what I was going to do with journalism until I talked to Maggie. Because I say that on the show all the time, that like I want to hear what Maggie says, but I legitimately mean this, that in her position, there is no one that does a better job. And there's
Acacia was sitting right here, he'd say that about her.
What I would say is
She'd throw a drink in his face, which would be very good video.
But there's nothing more that makes me feel comfortable when I'm on the other side of the show and I like a horse and Maggie likes the horse too. So my paper matches her brilliant opinion. It makes me feel very good. And I know she's been here all week and she's seen journalism working, and I wanted her to push me over the edge today. And I'll let her go now.
And I think I did earlier.
You did. Yeah, you did.
I haven't been wowed by a horse like this since American Pharoah, honestly, with the way that he moves, with just his athleticism, with his mind. I think he's incredibly special. Now, I did make that lofty comparison with him to American Pharoah. The problem is the running styles, whereas American Pharoah, found things.
Made his own trip, push button horse.
Correct. So journalism has allowed trouble to interfere, but he's shown that he can overcome it. Now, is he going to overcome that possible trouble with 19 other horses as opposed to just 4 other horses that he's been facing out there in California? So I think that's the biggest question. You're also dealing with a rider, and I don't want to be disparaging against Umberto Rispoli, but he doesn't have that experience that many of these other riders do, consistently riding year in, year out in the Kentucky Derby. That all being said, I've picked him.
I mean, the horse, we've talked about, 11 races on the show. There's one race where we all have the same horse, and it happens to be the Kentucky Derby. And we'll get into it a little bit deeper here. But, Phillip, I want to hear your case as to why you went the way you did here.
Yeah, I'd say we got some of the ownership group with journalism here tonight, so hopefully we did them proud. To me, he's just the most likely winner. I think he's the most talented 3-year-old at this point in time. I'm lucky I have him in one of the future books at like 19-1. So he's going to be,
Listen
my
to this,
wife started
listen to
spinning
this
up.
after timing over here.
Yeah.
Drinks are on Phillip when the horse wins.
But he just feels like, Sovereignty's going to come from way back. Sandman's going to come from way back. I think journalism has more speed than they do, and I don't think he needs to be 14th early. The reality is, and I've talked to a bunch of different people, and JK and I talk about it up here a bunch with different horses. But, the reality is, in a 20-horse field, you need a lot of luck. I don't care how much better you are than everybody else.
100%.
There are going to be horses that right out of the gate, their race is basically over. And he's just going to have to avoid bad luck, in my mind, more than create a bunch of good luck, because I just think he's – he feels like 1.25 miles is perfect. He's got a little bit more tactical speed than some of the horses that could come from way back. I do think in races like this, it feels like the pace is going to be very hot. I would like to say that the 4 of us are the 4 smartest people, but everyone knows that. And it even makes me nervous, like, does Citizen Bull just go straight to the front, and we're sitting there and he wires the field, and everybody said, the pace is going to be fast. Everybody just grabs hold. Like, East Avenue's not going to go.
I can't see it though, because there's 4 of the 5 first posts are speed,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all those horses' only
Is-
chances to go.
Are Rodriguez and Citizen Bull both going to go?
Well, as Bob said, that's a jockey problem, not his.
Yeah, I think they're
Yeah,
both going to play the break. I seriously don't think team tactics can be employed
No, there's no way,
in the
like,
Kentucky Derby
yeah.
when you have 2 horses drawn in the 5.
And it's same ownership too. So you're they just
Nobody's
going
gonna
to
grab.
No, they got to defer.
Not from those posts, not in my opinion.
They got to
I
defer.
agree with you.
I don't know. I'm not saying grab, but is there a scenario where Rodriguez is just happy to sit a length off Citizen Bull?
No,
I think
'cause
from
he's
down
shown he
there, he's
can't.
got a gun or he's got no shot. I mean, that's how I see it.
Yeah.
I didn't pick him, obviously.
I prefer Rodriguez over Citizen Bull.
The rail is so hard though too, because I mean I get it, like at least if you're a dead speed horse, if everything goes right and you catch a flyer, like I get it. There's a scenario he just catches a flyer.
Yeah.
But if anything other than that happens, isn't he doomed?
No. He's like one. If you just said, "Hey, would I have like a saver pick 4 or for me pick 3?"
I get that.
That runs a very small percent of my money. Like that is a scenario. I've just seen it happen, and they were like, "Man, it's going to be." This pace is going to light up, and I want everything coming from the back. And then you look afterwards, and you're like, man, the jockeys must have been thinking the same thing I was thinking. Now, in a 20-horse field, it's completely different. But it wouldn't be the first time Baffert's wired a horse that somebody just said, this horse has got no shot to go. The pace is going to be quick. And next thing you know, they're draping a garland of roses over them.
I will
JK, who's the best speed here?
Yeah, I mean, I think like make the lead speed Rodriguez, forward type East Avenue, for me. But here's the thing for me. I think in these races, I think even more so than like who do we love and like who do we like and who's. I think that when you're having this big puzzle, sometimes I think that helps the most is getting rid of some horses
completely
that
agree
make
with that.
noise. That you're I want to use this. The Dallas Stewart really ruined it for all of us with Commanding Curve and Golden Soul, where you feel like you have to find that 78-1 shot that's going to hit the board. I'm curious, as well as I was, to see how Maggie felt about journalism, spending time out there. Mags,
Yeah.
who did it? Because you're the best at talking bad about people's horses and they still like you. Somehow, I don't understand how.
That's
There's
a
no
special
medallion
skill.
horses in here, right? No.
Yeah.
Who
Only Phillies,
has,
no Colts.
Who has not made you feel warm and fuzzy?
There's
Good question.
There's only 2 that potentially could be short prices that have not. One of them, Sandman, a horse that
Maggie now a villain on TikTok. I would just like to point that out.
I don't have TikTok, so I
I'll
don't
explain
care.
that in a minute.
I don't care.
but I saw him consistently at Oaklawn, obviously, and happy, playful, front of his stall. He tried to bite me several times, and moving quite well. And now I watch him in the mornings, and he's just not enthusiastic. He's standing at the back of his stall. Even watching his baths, he's just standing there like this. He just does not look like a particularly happy, energetic horse, going into the biggest race of his career. The other one, and I don't know how short he'll be, but that I haven't loved is Tistastic.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be a great workhorse, right? Publisher seems to be continuously
Yes, and
outworking
obviously,
him.
right. But even just watching him gallop, I haven't necessarily loved him.
So it's worth pausing on my tic-tac silly comment because
Can't even think of
there
his
is a
name right
world
now.
in which, we've seen this in the Derby where a horse with a cool name or whatever gets like crazy over bet. My boy Jack, sort of the poster boy for this. So Griffin Johnson, who's an awesome dude, who is a TikTok superstar with 10 million followers on TikTok. This horse, Sandman himself, has become a bit of a superstar on this platform amongst the youngs. And there is a world in which he becomes that horse that just takes money that you look at the win pool and you're like, oh my God, how in the world is this horse the clear second choice in this very
He's
salty
the second
field?
choice right now. I don't
Well,
know
there
how
you
big
go.
the-
I didn't
don't
even
know how
look.
big the pool is, but he's
Yeah.
definitely.
I'm sure there's no money in the pool, but I do think that phenomenon could continue. He's such a
there's-
cool horse. He's a lovely gray. He's done some good things, but I mean, boy, is he not the one I would be lining up to bet against? Again, I'd be happy if I was wrong, a la Torpedo Anna. I'd be clapping the horse in. It'd be a wonderful result for horse racing if this horse that's turned so many people onto our game was able to do well. But Am I wrong that he's
No,
not like
well,
the bet against of this race?
There's $500,000 in the pool right now, and journalism is 4-1, and Sandman is 5-1.
Oh, Lord. I mean, if we could lock those in right now, JK, I would be bothering you to borrow some money.
Yeah. Do you want some long shots that look
Yes.
have really wowed
Of
me?
course, let's talk.
Yes, Maggie. Of course we do.
Okay, sure, whatever. No.
We got 5 minutes.
and
I was
literally-
going to get there eventually, but
Sorry,
let's go there now.
sorry. I interviewed Brad Cox today, and I said, obviously, it was unfortunate news with Tapan Street, who it sounds like surgery went excellent,
Good.
and he will be back either
Great news.
later this year or as a 4-year-old. And I said to him, Final Gambit was not on my radar whatsoever, but he goes, yeah, me neither. I was like, oh, geez. And I was like, but he looks to be training remarkably well. We don't know. He's a total X factor, but he's a not this time.
Yeah,
So,
there you go.
And who was the other one I thought looked, East Avenue, 100%.
We need to talk about a specific horse, and then we're going to do a long shot thing to wrap us home and send us where we need to go. But the other interesting thing, looking at our picks, is all the love for Sovereignty, and this gives us a chance for our hardcore people watching at home, listening at home, to get out their bingo cards and cross off Bill Mott with a target. JK, tell the people what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, he just that's Bill, and for me, it's like sometimes he'll just have horses in spots and they're supposed to run well and they don't, but it's not the spot that he's pointing to, and I think that it's one thing that we've seen, and it's kind of how I feel about him now. My point that I made quickly earlier is that I've heard about how he's not a good workhorse, but suddenly he's working well, so that makes me feel like he's gotten better. That's why he's working well. And so I don't love his style. It reminds me a lot of an Orb situation, which I guess that could be a positive. But
if there's going to be a meltdown, yeah.
Yeah, and if the pace is supposed to be as quick as it is. So, look, I think that I thought that it was him and journalism that were likely to win this race when I got here, and then I talked to Maggie. Now I feel much more confident about just journalism, but I'm not going to get beat by Sovereignty.
But to be fair, just watching horses stride, while journalism has a lot more fluidity to his stride, you want to talk about two horses that really cover some ground. Sovereignty covers massive amounts of ground too with his stride.
He's an interesting horse, there's no doubt about it. Phillip, I want to bring you in to talk about a horse in this field where there's $1 million babies that cost $2,500 that you put in your picks that I also like. I mean, if I'd had 5 picks, he would have been in there. Tell us what you think about Chunk of Gold.
Yeah, I just think, to me, the way I think about the Derby and the way I think about every race is just, how are you constructing your bets? If all you're playing is pick 4s, pick 5s, whatever, then he's maybe not a horse I'd be including. But if you're playing tries and supers, I thought Chunk of Gold was really interesting. I thought, Magnitude caught a flyer in the Risen Star, and nobody was going to catch him. He ran the fastest buyer of any 3-year-old this year. And then last time, I thought he moved early into a really quick pace, and everything else was coming from a lot further back than he was to win. He looks like he's training well. I could just see him being a horse that could be mid-pack and getting first run. And if Sovereignty gets into trouble or if journalism gets into trouble, he just seems like an honest horse that tries, and he could get a trip and get a jump on some of the deeper closers. He's drawn outside. He's not going to have to at least navigate being down in the masses probably. He's a horse I just think that is an interesting price. And I think, like JK said, I don't want to be trying to spend a bunch of my money on horses like that on the win end, but if you're playing tries, if you're playing supers, I just think he's a horse that could outrun his odds.
We got the X-ray back on Chunk of Gold. He got that dog in him, and I'm with you. This is a horse that's going to be a price that can get something. Maggie, let's bring you back in to talk about Grande.
I just want to say, with regards to Chunk of Gold, I did not know his trainer Ethan West before this week,
Great
and I
kid.
am a huge fan.
Oh, he's awesome.
He's
we
a
had him on the
dude.
Monster
I love
Pod.
him.
Love that guy.
Yeah. So Grande, I think, ran a better race than Rodriguez in the Wood Memorial, and maybe I'm just being a homer that I want something productive to come out of the Wood Memorial.
and it has. I mean, Mo Donegal came out of there and he won the Belmont a couple years ago. But
we get paid the same no matter what.
But Grande, light on experience, but I felt like getting good at the right time. Now, do I think like if it was a traditional Belmont year that he's a 1.5 mile Belmont horse? 100%. But I just thought there was a lot of upside with him. Looks as though he's training incredibly well, and that's something that I've often questioned sometimes about Todd's horses heading into the Derby, and the results would indicate that as well, being what is he, two for
like 42. Or
The numbers aren't
I
starting
think,
to lie.
I think it's even more than that. I think it's like 56 or something.
But it's hard. I think the Derby. I think it's hard to go down too far the rabbit hole for the Derby, just because it's so unique, and you run horses in there that you didn't necessarily want to run.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I hear you on Grande being live. Last question before we wrap this. I do want to talk a little bit more about Baeza. Should this horse draw in? And I think he's more than 50-50 to draw in. Am I wrong that he's hella live and almost, to me, on my value line would be the second choice, Phillip?
No, I mean he is absolutely a must-use in any. You know, if all of our opinions is that journalism is the most likely winner, journalism had a lot of trouble, or he had enough trouble to have an excuse in the last race.
Baeza had worse dynamics,
And
though, making
Baeza
that big
ran really
middle
well.
move. Yeah.
Now, I'd say, Barnes did no running, and he really was not given much of a shot to do any running, and Citizen Bull disappointed. So, but you could really argue there were 4 horses in there that looked like serious 3-year-old colts. And the only horse that beat him was the horse who's going to be favored in the Derby. Yeah. So, to me, he's absolutely a must-use on anything if he draws in.
JK, Maggie, any disagreements, anything to add, or are we all sort of, hey, if Baeza gets in, take him seriously?
I mean, it's such a cool story, too. For a mare to have 3 consecutive Derby contenders, one of which winning, the other winning the Belmont, it's incredible.
Talk about bread to the purple, blue hen
Yeah, right.
situation to all time. Any quick thought on Baeza before we wrap?
Yeah, I mean, if he draws in, he can win for sure. I know you're excited about him, Pete. So I don't want, but
rain on my parade. It wouldn't be the first time.
No. My thing is this is like a little sentimental. I just don't. If for him to get in, someone else's dreams have to get crushed. So I just I'll hear, because it's happened to me before when I was a football coach in Texas, making $50,000 a year and working 90 hours a week. I had bet I want revenge. And a future wager, and I was sitting at a Bob Evans in Louisville when my friend called and said, "Hey, did you hear I want revenge scratched?" So I don't wish that on anyone ever.
Fair enough. You and Michael Iavarone have something to talk about if you ever get stuck in an elevator. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you to our friends at TaylorMade, Medallion Partnerships, Stable Recovery, the most fun show we do all year. Thanks so much to the team. Eric Sanders, this is a great job year in, year out bringing this to us. Molly Heyer, we would not be here without her and the fabulous work she does. Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody for attending and watching online. May you win all your Kentucky Derby photos.